We were talking about this prior to the show. Paulie brought up the anniversary date when John Lennon was murdered, and that it came up on Monday Night Football. It happened on a Monday night, and this is late in the game, Patriots-Dolphins, I believe, and Howard Cosell and Frank Gifford, part of the broadcast team, are trying to decide what to do. It's the last commercial break, and here is the audio that you'll hear. During the commercial break, they're discussing if they want to break the news that John Lennon has just been murdered.
He was shot outside his apartment, the Dakota apartment building. Fellas, I just don't know. I'd like your opinion. I can't see this game situation allowing for that news flash. Can you?
Absolutely, I can see it.
You can?
You betcha. We've got to. If we know it, we've got to do it.
All right.
I don't hang on. It's a tragic moment. And
all right.
This is going to shake up the whole world.
All right. I will get it in. Let Gift call this play, and then I'll get it in.
Don Smith is on the line, and I don't care what's on the line, Howard. You have got to say what we know in the booth.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous, perhaps, of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival.
You can hear Frank Gifford, in case Cosell does not want to do this, he kind of backs him into a corner and saying, that we must bring this news to you, no matter what the situation is in the game, that we must bring this to your attention. I'm surprised it wasn't the other way around, where Cosell would have said to Frank Gifford, this is bigger than this football game. But it was Frank Gifford who is the one who was saying to Howard Cosell, no, this is going to shake up the world. And it did. Now, you don't have social media back then. No 24-hour news, or at least CNN maybe just, getting ready to get started, but you didn't have that. What happened was there was a news producer for ABC in New York, Channel 7, Alan Weiss. He was in a motorcycle accident in the hospital. Lennon was brought in and put next to him. So he's being treated for a motorcycle accident. They bring in John Lennon. He doesn't know that it's John Lennon. He overheard local police officers identify him and then heard efforts cease in the room where Lennon was being treated. And then they realized that John Lennon had passed away. They couldn't revive him. So you have this producer who calls to his station and says, hey, this is what just happened. He couldn't go public with it. So they had to pass on this story. And they were going to give it to a reporter. But they then had to pass it on to the big fish at ABC, is what they described it as, Monday Night Football. And that's how it got into the booth, because I think it was 6 years earlier, John Lennon appeared in the booth with Howard Cosell on Monday Night Football and developed some kind of relationship there. But Frank Gifford is the one who nudged Howard Cosell. And Howard's news judgment was great, but it was slipping away or abandoning him at that moment where he's thinking of a football game. Frank Gifford's going, no. Forget the football game. People are only going to remember what happened with John Lennon tonight. Pretty amazing story.
That really is a fascinating twist to that piece of news, or that moment.
Of what Frank Gifford did?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Howard Cosell's thought of as this, great broadcaster,
journalist,
great newsman. Yeah. And it's so funny that it was the athlete in that moment that pushed him.
Frank understood. He understood the bigger picture, and he's right. But I remember watching, and you hear the news, and like you're trying to put it together of it was late, and you're watching, and all of a sudden you forget that there's a football game on. And then back then, there was no extending the time post-game to talk about anything or even bring back the interview that John Lennon did 6 years earlier. It was, hey, basically, good night. See you next week. And then your local news took over from that. But pretty amazing moment. And even now, if you go to Central Park and there's strawberry fields, and then John and Yoko lived in the Dakota, so you can see where they lived, you can see where John was murdered. When we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we did the show there a few years ago. This is probably during the NBA Finals, maybe, and we did the show at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I remember that there was an exhibit that we got a chance to see. And I encourage anybody, if you get to Cleveland, it's just wonderful what they've collected at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And trust me, you're going to need 6 to 8 hours at least to get through it. But I remember seeing John's glasses from the night he died, the night he was killed. And there was a little smudge of blood on one of the lenses there. But Yoko had donated all of these items there, pieces of memorabilia. Remarkable, remarkable night. But I had forgotten. I didn't know the audio where Frank Gifford is the one that's saying. To me, if you would have said, who's the one who's going to say, we've got to tell this story, I would have thought Howard Cosell would have. Yeah, Paul.
And it's interesting now, they would be the last to know. With social media, those guys in the booth would be the last to know. It's like when Rich Eisen was doing the draft last year. I know it's very apples and oranges. Remember when the Laramie Tunsil thing breaks on social media?
Yeah.
It's a very different story, obviously. But the people in the room at the draft were the last to know about the social media aspect of a news report, and they wouldn't be the first to report something.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, is there any other moment during a sporting event like that, prior to social media, that kind of took over the game or that something was mentioned? And nothing's going to rival this, I don't think, with John Lennon. Yeah, McLevin.
It's totally different, but Jim McKay in the Olympics with Munich was that was where a sports
but that was at the event itself.
I remember seeing a special. A lot of sports people had to become news people and didn't. It was but McKay was able to pull it off.
Yeah, Jim McKay, he just able to be calm throughout all of that, and a lot of that stuff happening live. You're watching the '72 Munich games, and they would show you these guys in these ski masks, and you didn't know if somebody was going to get shot. It would have been live TV. But I remember Peter Jennings, I think, had a big role in those Olympics. But watching that unfold in real time, and you have the Olympics going on. Crazy. What was something else I was thinking that was going on? You mentioned Jim McKay with the Olympics. Was there another event that played out in front of us? I'm trying to think if there's another sporting event. Yeah, McLevin.
Obviously, O.J. Simpson.
Yeah. That took over the NBA Finals. Crazy night. Being in the Garden that night, and I'm in the press room, and I'm all of a sudden I got one monitor in the press room on the game and one monitor on the O.J. Chase, and then you're trying to go, wait, what is going on here? And I'm covering the NBA Finals for the mothership, but I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on with O.J. Simpson here. And that slow chase, and then after the game, and then I thought somebody from Howard Stern's show, Stuttering John, snuck in there and asked Pat Riley a question. Like, it was just wild that night. Yeah, Paulie.
I think it was Bob Costas who told us that OJ was calling the NBC switchboard or whatever, trying to get a hold of Bob Costas during the car chase.
Yes. Yeah, I think OJ was trying to get a hold of a couple people.
Right.
I don't know what he was going to ask them if he got a hold of them, but people thought that he was suicidal, going to kill himself. But, those are some strange moments. But that's when you see these newsmen, like Walter Cronkite, when you found out that JFK was assassinated, to be on the air. And I remember, I think he takes off his glasses and he announces to the world that the president has died. Live TV.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.